Hey, everybody, welcome to Engaging the Phenomenon. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Lue Elizondo, who is the former director of AATIP. And, I want to communicate to my audience that, Lue Elizondo has been a controversial character. He's been right in the center of everything that's been going on over the last few years. And I want to communicate before you judge or kind of try to place somebody as something. When I see Lue Elizondo, I see a human being, I see a father, I see a war hero, I see a husband, and we would not be where we are right now if it wasn't for everything he did. So, I really want people to understand that. And, it's easy to see somebody on TV and say that person's doing this or, anything along those lines. But, anybody who I know who's known Lue over the years has said he's a great guy, and I've seen him do nothing but good things for this community, and everything that he said that you can back check. He's never said anything that was dishonest. So, I have a huge amount of respect for Lue. So welcome, Lue.
Hey, thank you, James. This is really my pleasure, and let me apologize to you and also maybe some of your audience who are tuning in and listening to me. If for whatever reason having me on your show takes away from anything that you're doing, I apologize. My intent is not to create controversy. My intent is to try to unite and heal and move forward on this great topic. And my intent is not to come on here and break a bunch of china. My hope is to come here so we can have a conversation and your audience can have an appreciation of why it's so important. We all need to work together on this. No one owns the narrative.
Exactly, and that's what I'm trying to communicate here is that we should be working together, and all the work I've seen you do has pushed this subject forward and made a conversation where people can talk about this more openly. And look, here I am. I'm somebody who would be considered part of the CE5 community, and I think you've done great work. And I think working together is the way forward. And like you said, anybody who has a narrative that's divisive in any way, that should be concerning. And that's not the way of an ambassador or anything like that. That's not the message that kind of CE5 work is even about. It's about bringing people together and working together. If people want to communicate with non-human intelligence, UFOs, ET, you have to work with humans first.
Look, James, I'll tell you, look, people say, oh, Lou, you don't believe in CE5. Look, we talk to a different species all the time. I mean, I've got 2 German Shepherds, and obviously they're not human. And we communicate, I think, pretty damn effectively. These are sentient beings. So the fact that we can communicate with other species, I don't have any issue with that. And species aren't limited necessarily to dogs or even your goldfish or something else. If there's a way, look, I worked with some of the most forward-leaning scientists in the U.S. government, folks like Hal Puthoff that did tremendous work in the area of remote viewing and things like that, and folks like Kit Green and folks like Eric Davis. So I've never been against CE5. What I'm against are people that claim to have the answer and are sure of it, and force that on other people to say, I'm the only one that has the answer, I'm the only right way to go. That's my problem. I think it's a perversion of what CE5 is all about. Communication is 2 ways. It's not one way.
Yeah.
And that is my issue when people take a turn. And worse is that when you say CE5, now you're talking about a product. And by the way, I saw this in the other world of remote viewing, where people will take a concept that should be, if it's valid, should be free for all. And instead, people make a cottage industry out of it. They exploit it. And they say, well, if you want to do remote viewing, you can only do it my way. And here's a copyright. I've copywritten the entire process. Here's how you do it. And you got to pay me to do it. That's what I reject. And I reject it. I reject it completely. Totally. I think it's disingenuous. And it perverts the very thing that people are trying to achieve. When I talk to my dog or feed my goldfish, I don't have to pay somebody a royalty to do that. It's communication shouldn't be a cottage industry. It shouldn't be a commodity. And I think the only reason why we're here where we are, this conversation right now, is because we haven't made it a commodity yet. This is, we've opened this to floor to everybody. Here's, if I may, just for a moment, James, let me share with you my issue with anything related to UFOs. There are too many people out there that say me, mine, or I. Okay, it's I want to know, and this is important. And if the evidence out there isn't provided to me specifically, then I'm going to reject it. This is a conversation about we, ours, and us. Okay, this is our collective understanding. This is our collective mission. This is our collective, if you will. This is. I want to put this in the right words because I don't want to say something that's going to be misconstrued. This is our journey. This is our joint journey together. And this isn't about me or mine or I. This is about all of us. And this just journey is like a big caravan. And if one person starts getting way ahead, then it's no longer a mutual journey. And that's not what this is about. This is about all of us coming to the realization that this universe may be far more complex than we've ever really previously acknowledged. And so that's why I really, really detest when it's all about me, mine, and I, because this isn't that's not a journey. Then that's at that point it becomes some sort of personal crusade, and that's not helpful to this conversation. I mean, I could have a long time ago turned this to this, the way I think is the only way to do it. But I haven't. And by the way, I could have been very successful with it. There's a lot of people that out there probably would have followed it, but that's not the solution. It doesn't matter what Lue Elizondo thinks or believes. What matters is what the facts and the data suggest. And what really matters is what people like you and your audience think and believe. That's really what's important here. And as a collective, all of us working together, I think we stand a really good fighting chance of getting the disclosure everybody wants. But if we turn this about me and my personal pursuits, and I don't mean Lue Elizondo, I mean anybody in your audience saying, well, I haven't seen the videos out there that are compelling, so therefore I don't believe it. Well, it ain't about you. It's about us. And when you talk about these briefings being provided to senior members of our government, they're getting more compelling data. Recognize that. And it's okay that if you're not getting the immediate answer you want right now, because this isn't, again, Burger King, this isn't have it your way and have it now. We're preparing an 8-course meal here because this topic deserves it. It demands it. It's important enough. The last thing we want to do is do some sort of half-baked disclosure where all of a sudden you just kind of, here it is on the table. And now what? You got a big mess on your hands. That's not helpful.
Yeah. And just in short, I want to say for people listening, CE5, the basic premise is, Dr. Hynek and Valet have noted in their work over the decades, high strangeness. And part of the high strangeness was telepathy and conscious communication with the phenomenon, UFOs and UFO intelligence. And basically all CE5 is broken down, take away terminologies and semantics, is just turning that around and utilizing, mental intention and, whatever we can say consciousness is, and being able to affect the phenomenon or its technology in a way that it's responsive. And that's it. And I do think the idea of a public outreach to UFO intelligence, like a citizen's diplomacy, is not a bad idea. Especially, considering the idea that nobody was able to get answers on this for decades. Now things are moving. But again, I really appreciate your words on that, Lue. And just in short for the audience, what is Lue's mission? What's your mission?
Truth, man. Truth. That's it.
Yeah.
Truth. And let the chips fall where they fall, and let people make a decision and decide for themselves what this means to them. It's truth. That's all it's ever been about. It's not about what Lue thinks. Like I said before, it's about what the data suggests and how each individual is going to absorb this information on their own, and determine how it's going to affect their own lives. That's not up for me to make that determination. It's always been about the truth. Even when I was in the military, when I was an intelligence officer, it's always about finding the truth. and making sure that at the end of the day, that's what guides our decisions. That's what guides our decision-making process, truth and facts. And sometimes those truth and facts can even be subjective. People say, well, how can the truth be subjective? Well, because sometimes we all have our own personal truths. And there's not necessarily always a universal truth. That's why we have Democrats and we have Republicans. That's why we have Christians and we have, Jews and Muslims and Hindu and Buddhists, because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and defining the truth isn't always so hard to do. Now, you can find truth in mathematics, but the moment you inject an emotional aspect to this, which all human beings are emotional to some degree, then the truth becomes a little bit more subjective. And it's important that I provide the data so people can formulate their own truths. I don't want to give truth according to Lue Elizondo. I want to give truth according to facts and data and science, and then allow every person out there to formulate their own truth that works for them. And that's what drives me. I don't believe in organizations, institutions, or governments making that decision for us. That's not me. I'm not that guy. For me, I think it's up to the people, for the people, by the people. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And, and I can respect that. And, I'm somebody who's had, you can say positive contact experiences, right? But I'm not going to tell everybody else that they're wrong. I don't think that's the right way, because there's been experiences that, haven't had the best experiences. And I have to be open to and respect that. So I understand what you're saying about the subjectivity versus the objectivity.
Right.
Now you mentioned you were in the, you're an intelligence officer, and some flack you get is, oh, well, you're an intelligence officer, so you're part of some kind of psyop. And I want to remind people that, especially people who were supporters of the Disclosure Project, is that all of those people were military and intelligence officials. So I saw you as like this, you were the guy we were waiting for. You were the Disclosure Project witness that we were waiting for to come out and kind of blow the lid on this. So that's just some commentary I want to say on that.
Well, in my perspective is, look, I could easily say, which I don't feel this way, but that type of thinking, when people say, well, you're an intelligence officer, you're trying to fool the American people, then, I could easily say, well, you're not an intelligence officer, so you must be dumb as hell. You know what? Because you're not an intelligence officer, you have no idea what's going on, so therefore your opinion doesn't count. And that's not how I feel, of course, but that's the type of mentality when people automatically chuck somebody into a bucket and say, oh, well, you serve your country being an intelligence officer, so now when you come out, I can't trust you. That's the same thing as, well, you were a fireman before, so you'll never be able to touch a pack of matches because, you're an expert in fire. Well, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
I mean, no, firemen put out fires. Yes, they have to be experts in fire, but doesn't mean you can't trust them with a pack of matches. So that's kind of the mentality that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. And it sucks because they tend to be the most vocal on social media, and they're willing to say these things. But the moment they meet you in person, it's a totally different story. And it's like, guys, just give me a break here. Aren't you happy with where the conversation is so far? I mean,
yeah.
3 years ago, everybody was chasing their tail, and now we have our legislative branch engaged, our executive government engaged. We've got foreign countries engaged. We've got the media engaged. I mean, what more do you want? I said in the beginning this was going to be a process. What is there not to understand? I didn't even say. And then when you asked me, not you, of course, but people asked me, well, where are we in the process? I said, we're at the beginning of the process. I never lied to you. I told you exactly where we were, what I thought, and where we were in this conversation. And we've come a long way. And instead, people just want to constantly backbite and snipe and say, oh, well, what evidence have you guys produced? Well, a lot. I mean, have you not seen the last 3 years of where we are in the conversation? Now, of course, some people are going to say, well, Lou, you've isolated portions of this discussion, like the CE5 community. Well, that's not my intent. The CE5 community can say and do whatever they want, and they can participate as much as they want. We want you with us together. We are a collective, and there's more strength and influence and power as a group. The problem is that the CE5 community gets mad because I think a certain way. Well, you know what? CE5 community never asked me. I've got no issue with CE5. What I got an issue with are people who claim to own the CE5 field and say it's either their way or the highway. That I do have a problem with, because that's the same kind of shit that I dealt with in with tyranny all over the world. I can't stand that. It makes my blood boil. Anybody who tries to hijack this, and what they're doing is they are the ones who are actually hijacking this conversation. And they are the threat to disclosure, because that's the reason why media never wanted to cover this in the first place, because you got a bunch of people out there that are sitting in a lotus position and now charging people money to have some sort of experience. And then later on, it turns out that, planes are dropping flares, out of the sky. That I don't understand how that helps the conversation. And yes, there's a lot of people out there that when they say that, they get all emotional and pissed off. Well, you know what? Stop dropping flares out of the sky then, and I won't have a problem. Stop charging people for that shit. If you want to charge people to and have a conversation, but don't exploit people. I mean, that's exploitation. That's deceptive practices. That is, it's funny when someone says, "Oh, you're trying to deceive the people and if you will, run away with the conversation." I mean, in psychology, we call that reflection. They're accusing somebody of doing something that they themselves are guilty of, right? It's like a cheating spouse that gets very jealous. Well, they're only jealous because they're the ones cheating. And that's my concern. I think, James C., there is nothing wrong. Look, the human brain is a wondrous mechanism. It is by far one of the most sophisticated and mysterious things known to mankind, because in this tiny little package, we have so much stuff going on, and even just beyond intellect and intelligence, consciousness. And I don't mean consciousness in a woo-woo sense. I mean human consciousness. Scientists now almost recognize that there's some sort of quantum processes going on inside the human consciousness. And so when we understand that, we recognize that even the very notion of time itself, and possibly even space, gets a little muddy. It gets a little confusing. And this is why I've mentioned the discussion last time about the burning cigarette, because really at the very, very small scale of the universe, time and space almost becomes nonsensical. And that it may be part of the reasons why humans can do what they do. And frankly, it may not even be that special. There could be a lot of sentient animals out there that use that part of the brain because they don't have the verbal speech that we have. They haven't developed verbal speech. So they have to rely on these, if you will, sixth senses for survival. I've never had a problem with that. And the fact that maybe that can be used. Look, I communicate with my loved ones all the time, non-verbally. Okay. And I know when my daughter's going to have some problems, I'll pick up the phone and say, "Hey, sweetheart, are you okay?" "Well, gee, Dad, it's funny you said that. I just got into a fender bender." Right. I can't explain that. Is it coincidence? It could be, but it could also not be. There could be some sort of quantum process that I have some connection with my family that somehow transcends space and time. I'm not opposed to that. That's what, remote viewing has quite a bit of research in that area right now, especially if we start realizing that human consciousness is a quantum process. I think I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is people saying definitively that they have the answers, and they take their experiences and they say, this is the only experience that people can have. That's horseshit. I can't, it drives me nuts, because you're no longer leading a conversation. You're a cult. You're trying to control people's thought processes and behaviors, and worse, you're extorting money from them. That I can't stand. And anybody who wants to do that, fine. You want to give your money to somebody, fine. But my recommendation is you're better off giving it to a charity. At least they'll do something positive with it.
Yeah. Well, and the way I see it is that, the CE5 community, there's some great people in there, and a lot of people are just, it depends. Some of them have only just delved into that area, so they're super into it, and they have not explored beyond some of the work that's out there. But I find that usually once they start exploring around and seeing everything else out there, they come to their senses and they have more independent thinking, and the CE5 community, one thing I've tried to argue is, the CE5 community, it's kind of a niche in a sense, but it doesn't need to be disconnected in any way from all the other research communities. There's no need for that. There's no sides, again, we're going to accomplish this by learning from each other and moving the ball forward. But speaking about the threat narrative, that's a criticism that comes up. People are saying, oh, Lue's he's pushing the threat narrative. And I understand that there's legitimate situations which, if it was another, country doing it, we'd be very concerned. But for some reason, if it's aliens, we're going to give them the pass. Right. And I get it. If you've had a positive experience, it leaves an impression on you. So I get that, and I get the ideology behind, oh, well, if they're so advanced, they know better, they're not going to be harmful. But again, that is an ideology. So let me just get your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, there's a difference between a threat and hostile intent. Okay. Every time I go outside without sunscreen, there's a threat for me getting skin cancer. Okay. It's a threat. I don't know how else to tell people that, there's the threat spectrum is so broad and so wide that it's, I've often told people, if I go to an airport and I get on a plane, there's no threat. But if I go to that same airport and jump on the runway, and now I'm running behind jet engines as they're running, there's a threat. There's an environmental and a biological threat to myself, right, and my well-being. So I think people need to stop worrying about, what I mean by threat. I've tried to make it perfectly clear. Threat is a potential threat, and it can be environmental, it can be biological, it can be purposeful, it can be from a national security perspective. Then you have hostile intent. Okay, there's a lot of things that are threats out there that don't mean to be hostile, and there's a difference. And so what we need to figure out from a governmental perspective is, are these things a threat, and if so, in what areas they're a threat? Okay, and get over the emotional saying, oh, kumbaya, we love. Look, what do you care? If there's no threat there, then there's no threat.
Exactly.
Okay? But give me an opportunity to figure that out for myself. You don't make that decision for me. You won't, you never have, and you never will. Just like I don't make that decision for you. And if you want to sit there and sing kumbaya, then do it. I'm not stopping you, but don't stop me from making sure to my own self that this isn't a threat. You don't have the right to tell me that, just like I don't have the right to tell you. So I'd say get over it, and stop trying to drive the narrative, not you, of course, but people out there, stop trying to drive the narrative that this is not a threat, because frankly, you don't know. And if it's not you, then great. Okay, then it's not. But I still have the ability and the right to decide for myself. This goes back to that whole part where people are trying to drive the narrative. Stop speaking for me. I'm not asking you to speak for me. Don't do that. Okay, don't speak for the government. Don't speak for anybody else but you. And if you think it's not a threat, then great. But you have no right to tell me I don't have the right myself to investigate that for myself. And that's what we're doing. It's called due diligence, and ultimately, if people out there are correct and there's no threat, then you know what? Great. You're right. I'll go buy a beer. Who cares? I don't care, but
yeah, and that's one thing I've brought up, but there's no way, there's no scenario in this where we're victimizing the UFO phenomenon by, exploring the idea of the threat versus hostility. So we don't have to worry about them. Because we're clearly, based on the technology, I don't think we pose a threat to them. I think that.
But I will tell you, I think we have to be cautious superimposing anthropomorphic ideals onto something we have no idea about. It's like swimming in the ocean and swimming in a pool of great white sharks and thinking they're not going to bite you because they're not hungry, right? We have to be careful ascribing human motivations and emotions to something that may at the end of the day may not even be human at all. We don't know. And so, this could be something like artificial intelligence, which is, binary. Do we get mad when the computer spits out a certain search result on Google? No, because that's AI for you, right? It doesn't have the emotional motivations that we have as a human species. And so I think when it comes to assuming or presuming something is or is not, we have to be very careful, because we have no basis to make that judgment other than our own. We are looking at everything through the lens of a human being. Perfect example, I've said this before. flying in a helicopter over the Serengeti plain. You want to go ahead and look at the health of a particular herd of water buffalo. You fly over the herd, you scare the hell out of them. They all start scampering. You shoot one with a dart. Next thing it knows, it falls to the ground. It's asleep. We start tagging and tracking and putting little markers on it, all sorts of stuff. We take off in the helicopter and fly away. And all of a sudden, that water buffalo or that wildebeest wakes up and goes, "What the hell was that? That was a UFO. Oh my God."
Yeah.
Let alone what the intentions of the occupants inside the helicopter were, right? Because we don't explain ourselves to the water buffalo and say, "Hey, do you mind if you just kind of stop running for a second? We're going to land this helicopter. We're going to go ahead and dart you, and we're going to go ahead and put all sorts of stuff in your body so we can test, the health of the herd and the migratory patterns and the diets and the reproductive cycles and blah 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 blah." No, we just do it, right? So are we meaning to be, is our intent to be hurtful or a threat to the wildebeest? No, but I bet if you were to ask the wildebeest, if they had a choice, they'd probably say, "You know what, I'd like to pass on that experiment. Why don't you go to Joe who's standing over there?"
Yeah. And like you said before, I think at the end of the day that the truth of this is gonna reveal itself in time. Now, it's going to be a controversial question, but I wanted to ask it because I don't think I've heard anybody ask you. Is MILABs? Are you familiar with that term?
I am familiar with the term.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, it is. Let me break this down. There is historical evidence and facts that substantiate that our own government has done horrible things in the past. Whether it's putting smallpox into blankets and giving that to indigenous people, or it's allowing syphilis to run its course and decimate a test group of individuals, or us, spraying chemicals in the Lincoln Tunnel, us sending spies into infiltrate student groups. There have been abuses in the past by elements within our government that have been absolutely horrific, unconscionable, and there is absolutely no place in our society for that. Now, with that said, to this day, and by the way, please forgive me, I can't speak about things that happened before me because I frankly don't really know. But during my time in AATIP, there was zero evidence to suggest, that our government was conducting certain types of experiments on our own people. During when I was in AATIP, now there was some anecdotal information. I've talked to some people that had some very interesting things happen to them when they were younger, and probably in the late 60s. But I don't know enough to talk about that because frankly I wasn't around. But from when I was in AATIP and at the Pentagon, there's no way, at least from an intelligence perspective, and I can't speak from another perspective, but we have things called intelligence oversight, procedure 15 violations, and we've got a whole army, no kidding, a whole army of lawyers out there that are looking for us to make mistakes. They want us to keep them employed. So their whole job is to find us doing mistakes like this. So if they catch us in a Title 10 capacity, which is the Department of Defense, military, think of posse comitatus, doing something against civilian population, especially involving U.S. persons, that is a huge no-no. Look at case in point, the renditions, detentions, interrogations program that we had for a while, trying to find bad guys after 9/11. That lasted for only a little while before it came out and the government was held accountable. And these weren't with U.S. persons; these are with non-U.S. persons. And there was a huge accountability effort ongoing to make sure that never happens again. So the government is usually pretty good at making sure the abuses don't happen. And when they do, they're usually a result of one or two people making a unilateral decision, not the institution itself. That's not always the case, but that's to answer, I guess, come back to your original question about MILABs or MILABs. I haven't seen any information to substantiate that. I know some people say that, well, I saw some dude in a uniform. Okay, maybe, but bad guys wear uniforms too. There's been times where I've seen, unfortunately, terrorist attacks conducted because some bad guys stole some U.S. Army uniforms out of a laundromat. So just because someone's wearing a military uniform doesn't mean they're necessarily military. Doesn't mean necessarily that they represent the very thing that that uniform signifies. Again, this is total speculation on my part, so let me caveat this. I know people like to hang on to every word I say, and they'll say, well, Lue didn't say that, so he must meant that, which is, by the way, true sometimes. But in this particular case, it's not. I haven't had any information that substantiates that, but I'm certainly not going to say it's not in the realm of possibility. But I don't think it's, at this point, I don't think it's probable. Is it possible? Yes, sure it is. Is it probable? I'm not convinced. But again, I can be proven wrong, and I'm happy to change my outlook if someone can provide me some substantive data that says, yeah, look what's happening, and this this occurred. Then I'm good with that. I got no problem changing my opinion around facts. That's part of the problem here, because people, as part of the human condition, we like to, when new facts come in, we have a narrative, preconceived narrative right here. And when facts come in, what we like to do is typically adjust those facts to comport to our narrative, rather than adjust our narrative now to if you will, process those facts and accommodate the facts, the new data that suggests maybe something different. We don't like to do that. We don't like to change our opinions very much, and that's part of the human condition.
Yeah. Now I would like to talk about crash retrievals and materials. Mm-hmm. So I remember when you were on Tucker Carlson, and you had the famous line of, simply put, yes. Does the U.S. government possibly have materials? And when you asked that question, I went to Eric Davis and I asked him, what do you think about Lue's statement? And Eric Davis said, and he authorized it for public use. What Lue said is 1,000% correct. And the U.S. government has crashed and or landed UFOs. Why do you think he said that?
Well, I'm not going to answer for Eric Davis. Eric Davis is an incredible human being. I've had the honor and privilege of knowing him, and more importantly, I've also seen the work product that he's produced for this nation. And at some point, maybe one day, it'll be clear all the stuff he has done for his country. But he really is. When you talk about American heroes, he really is one of those. He falls in that category quite squarely. He's an amazing human being. So I'm not going to elaborate on what Eric Davis thinks or says or knows. He's his own man. I can tell you that when he tells you something, he tells you the truth. He has no motivation other than the truth. As far as my own personal perspective, I have to be, here I'm going to throw something out that everybody gets pissed off at, but I've got to be careful, because I'm walking a very fine line. If I say one or two words incorrectly as it relates to this particular topic, I can find myself in a lot of trouble. So I know people say, well, just say it anyways. Well, easy for you to say. You don't, you're going to feed my family. You're going to pay my kids' school and my mortgage when I'm in jail. No, you're not. So, that's not even realistic. So I have to be very careful. The question was posed to me, do I believe that the U.S. government is in possession of exotic material and whatnot? And my answer is yes. And until the government decides to be more transparent, I really can't elaborate on that, other than that, when you let me give you a hypothetical. When you find a piece of something, there's really three layers of analysis you can conduct. You can conduct the physical analysis, looking at electric conductivity, the shape, the size, the weight, then you do a chemical or molecular analysis to look at the way the molecules are arranged, and determine, the characteristics of something at the molecular level. And then you have atomic or nano level research, where you're looking at the individual construct of the atoms and how they are arranged at the very, very small level, isotopic ratios and things like that. And when you see something, a piece of material that's been clearly engineered, meaning there's some sort of intelligence to put things together, and at the nano level, there are some peculiarities that fall outside the normal range of what you might consider, let's say, nickel or aluminum or magnesium or bismuth, then you have to say, okay, who created it and how? And at the end of the day, when you have material that has been found before supposedly we as a species had a technology to engineer it that way, then you've got to ask the question. And this is why I've said before, a 747 isn't uncommon to see at an international airport. But imagine being the first guy to break into King Tut's tomb, and of all the things you find in there, you find an intact 747 sitting in the tomb. Doesn't make sense, does it? Because 747s weren't around when King Tut was around. So what the hell is a 747 doing in King Tut's tomb? So that's the best analogy that I can use without going into further detail. I've tried to be very careful. I don't want to be dismissive of your question, because it's an important question. I would ask that same exact question, but I also have to be very, very careful. And if you notice, other folks like Hal and Eric and others, they're very careful to have this conversation too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not just me. I'm
Yeah.
not just being paranoid and cagey here.
You're actually the most out in the open. They still, now what you said, if the US government ever gets to that point, that I guess you can talk more. Do you think that we're likely to reach that point where the US government is going to be forthcoming about such materials? And if it is in the cards, like, I mean, do you think
I
there's a
think if the
timeline?
material is proven to be what it might be, then I think, yes, all truths eventually come out. I'm not a material science expert, so we still need to test it. This is why I keep telling people, we need more data, more analysis. And only then are we going to be able to make that determination. Is this really exotic or not? All I can do is provide you what has been made known to me. But I also recognize that, we still need more data. Right now you're asking me my belief, which I rarely like to offer, but I've made that exception in this case as it regards material. But I also, if it turns out in 10 years that this material just happens to be some sort of foreign adversarial tech that was really ahead of its time, I'll buy that too. We have to let the data speak for itself. Do I think that's the case? No, I don't. But like I said, I'm not going to let my cognitive dissonance or my bias interfere with the research. We need more analysis done before we can say, conclusively, this is not made here. And there's ways to do that. There was a dagger found, in actually talking about King Tut's tomb, there was a dagger that was found, a small dagger. And for the longest time, it remained kind of this, it wasn't particularly significant to anybody. It was just kind of this modest little dagger. And it turns out that the entire blade was made from a meteorite, because someone decided to do the testing on it. And they realized that the chemical composition of this was not from Earth. And that's what made this dagger so special. And that is, we have the science to determine if something is from here or not. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, cool. And just one crash retrieval case I don't hear talked about much. Starfish Prime. Does it sound familiar?
I've heard the name. I don't know it specifically. I know there's a lot of names for a lot of things out there. But if you want to describe it a little bit to me, I may be able to tell you.
Yeah,
Again,
they were
please,
I'm
not being cagey. I really don't.
Yeah,
sure. Of names.
They were doing a nuclear test to explode a nuclear warhead in space, and allegedly something crashed in the ocean, and it was retrieved.
Let me. There may be some significance to EMPs. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, so please don't take this and anybody run to the hills. This is, at this point, pure speculation based upon some potential observations made in the past. There may be some truth that an electromagnetic pulse of energy can interfere with whatever this technology is and its propulsion. And if it interferes with it, then you now you now have a very interesting scenario where whatever is keeping these things up in the sky, it no longer does that. Can't do it. And so now all of a sudden, if you will, the bubble pops. And so all of a sudden comes crashing down this object that has no wings, no tail, no ailerons, no obvious signs of propulsion. And now it really does become a brick, and that brick falls. Now all of a sudden gravity has a say, and Mother Nature takes over. And that's probably what I'll say right now about that.
Sure. And you know, people have thrown around the agency or term, the Department of Energy. Why is that the Department of Energy significant in this conversation?
Well, because it is. Department of Energy owns the nuclear technology for this country. They are the ones who regulate the classification systems for nuclear energy and technology. And there's a lot of Department of Energy facilities in and around the continental United States. And you know, they have a very important job, a very important mission. And DOE, if anybody's going to understand nuclear technology, DOE is probably the best place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And Christopher Mellon, you know, he was on Joe Rogan. He mentioned, you know, something along the lines of they have even less oversight in some of their programs, I guess.
Well, you know, we have reporting of UAP activity over things like Oak Ridge. Pardon me, sorry, my hearing is kind of going off here. Oak Ridge National Laboratory and some of these other facilities where there is a DOE presence. You know, this isn't new to us. There's reporting that's actually in the open public that anybody can look up and read if they want to. And it's pretty interesting. You know, there seems to be this, again, some interest in nuclear technology where these things are seen over very sensitive U.S. facilities. I mentioned Oak Ridge because there's some reporting out there that's available, but that's certainly not the only one. There's other ones that have seen time and time again UAP activity, and for me that's problematic.
Would the DOE have information that the public would not be able to see?
Well, sure, because they have their own classification system and markings. They are, you know, they are an independent organization. They support the intelligence community, but they're not Department of Defense. They work with the Department of Defense. They work with the intelligence community. They work with a lot of folks, state and local tribal authorities. You know, they are the if you will, the one-stop shop for nuclear technology. And not only what we had in the past, but what we have today and what we're going to have in the future. These folks are probably some of the best and brightest in that enclave, if you will, of nuclear tech.
Yeah, and speaking of different agencies, you know, what is it going to take the U.S. Air Force to weigh in on this subject?
You know, Air Force has gotten a bad rap, and they've gotten beaten up pretty bad about this. But I got to tell you, you know, they're pretty good at what they do. And I think after Project Blue Book, they really kind of got burned. You know, they were put in a position where they were, you know, kind of told to, hey, let's wrap this up. Let's put this baby to bed. You know, we don't want to deal with this anymore. And now we're coming back and saying, Air Force, where are you? You know, so Air Force is probably sitting in a corner right now, kind of nodding its head saying, well, you know, we tried to do this last time and we were told that, you know, there was no appetite for this. So we're going to sit this one out and sit back and see how this plays out. And then at some point we may get back into the game, but you know, they're probably a little bit burned by it. Now I will tell you that today's Air Force is not your father's Oldsmobile. It's a whole new generation. And my discussions with a few folks, they seem very much interested in this topic, very much like NASA has stepped up to the plate. You know, Air Force is a bureaucracy like anything else. I think they're trying to figure out how best way to start collecting and reporting this information. But you know, you also have a new organization called Space Force, which is a whole nother branch of service. And is there some play for them in this? Well, yeah, probably. So the question is it Air Force, or now do we ask Space Force, which by the way is comprised of mostly Air Force anyways, or former Air Force. These are all good questions. I mean, we're still making the cake right now. This is not, we don't have all the answers or solutions right now. People are still trying to determine the best way to get this information collected, triaged, processed, analyzed, and produced. And it's not just the Air Force. Now we have, potentially FAA and NOAA could be of importance, scientific and academic community. This is why we've been pushing for a whole of government approach, because the problems that are involved with this topic require more expertise. You can't just put this on the shoulders of the Air Force. It's not fair, or the Navy, right? Or perhaps even the entire Department of Defense. This is a multifaceted mystery we're dealing with here, and it's going to take a whole lot of folks, and probably even with the help of some of our foreign friends and allies that we trust, maybe bring them under the tent as well.
Is there ever like an idea that maybe public scientists and even U.S. public scientists could be involved in this kind of study?
Well, isn't that interesting? Because if you look at the videos that were released, the original 1910 stipulates creating some sort of center of gravity, if you will, or a capability that allows our best and brightest in the scientific and the academic communities and those involved in the defense industrial base, create an open source repository where everybody can look at it and help analyze and crowdsource, if you will, or in this case, crowd analyze this data. That is precisely what we were trying to achieve in AATIP towards the end. We wanted to create a repository, a larger enclave, so people with certain expertise could look at these videos, and then future videos, right? This was kind of I hate to excuse the pun, a test balloon, but getting these videos out in the public to see if we could crowdsource what the heck was going on. And hopefully it's not just the 3 videos. My hope would be that we would see the value in that, and we would create this we have I won't say specifics, but we have these enclaves in the analytic community where analysts from all over the intelligence community can look at a problem and try to find a solution, and they analyze it jointly. And by the way, it's very effective. So wouldn't it be great if we did the same thing with some of these videos, where we create an official construct where anybody can look at these videos and offer their opinions, and if they have certain qualifications, then those opinions are weighted or valued maybe more. So if you have, someone looking at it says, well, that looks like a glare on a camera, that gets a value of whatever X. But then you've got a photo expert who, has done forensics on photographs or videos for 20 years, maybe they get a weighted value of Y, right? And ultimately we have this crowdsourcing approach to looking at this incredible mystery.
Yeah, I really think that's what needs to happen. I hope that happens, subsequently after this report and as things continue to go. And it's, speaking of AATIP, was, I know OSAP kind of may have utilized this, but was there ever any kind of remote viewing talked about in AATIP, and if not OSAP maybe?
Well, James, you definitely threw me for a curve on that one. Let me think about the way to respond to this. I'm going to defer to some of my colleagues. If you want an answer to that question, I would talk to folks like Hal Pudoff. I don't want to answer. That's their area of expertise, and I'll just leave it at that.
Sure, I talked to Hal. Did you ever work with John Alexander?
I know John. John's a very good man. We were separated by one generation. I know the work of John Alexander. I've had the distinct pleasure of meeting him multiple occasions. We are in direct dialogue. He has been very helpful to this cause. And when I say cause, I mean this endeavor to increase transparency and disclosure. He is, he's one of the giants that we stood on his shoulders with AATIP. John Alexander has served his country honorably, and he's done things for this country. Again, very much like Eric Davis and Hal, that the world has no idea. You've only scratched the surface. This guy is a true warrior, and he's incredibly intelligent. He's worked his way up through the special operations community, but he's also an intellect, right? He's not just all brawn and no brain. He's both. He's a complete package. And when John calls me, I listen. You know, he has a tremendous amount of experience. So I guess long story short is, yeah, I know John quite well.
Very cool. Now the SAPs, special access programs, and unacknowledged special access programs get brought up a lot, especially when talking about the UFO subject. So there are such a thing as unacknowledged special access programs, or the waived SAPs?
Of course there are. Yeah, that's in law. You can see that, you know.
Yeah, I forget which title it is. I remember Christopher Mellon, actually, he named the whole title.
Yeah, and there's also covert action, which is under Title 50. But that's all. This is these are mechanisms to, the more sensitive of an effort you have, the more you want to protect it from the enemy, and so the more you compartmentalize it.
How do you connect oversight community or bodies?
Sure.
To even,
I'll give you an example. With covert action, you have the Gang of Six and Gang of 12. There's always oversight. Even no matter how secret something is, somebody in the chain of command has to know. Period. Even if it's waived or bigoted SAP. And when I say bigoted, people say bigoted. What does that mean?
You have it on a bigot list.
Yeah, right. It's a bigot list. Whether waived or unacknowledged SAPs, someone is still in the loop. Someone has to be, and that all good, because you're spending taxpayer money. Someone has to be held accountable. Otherwise, you run into issues like we did with Operation Yellow Fruit. So there is always an accountability lane somewhere. And if these SAPs are being run without that accountability, then they're not real SAPs. Then they're rogue operations. Then these are operations that are running under the radar and frankly are illegal, because there are very specific guidelines if you want to run those type of programs, and you can't deviate from those at all. So I don't think there's some waived or unacknowledged SAP at this point. If they are, they're scared shitless, because right now the gig is up. They know. If they get found out that they've been running these rogue operations with no accountability, they're done. They're going to jail. I mean, today. So it's not. It definitely would not. I would be very surprised if there was some type of rogue operation. Now, I do think there may be some legacy efforts that are falling under authorities that were once put down and now forgotten. It's not uncommon that a memo establishing a program from some Secretary of Defense in 1978 is still being used. We still use, for example, the National Security Act of 1947. A lot of the new rules and regulations that we have coming out of the department and the intelligence community stem from the National Security Act of 1947, right after World War II.
Yeah.
It's almost been 100 years, and we're still putting that. If you look at a lot of the DoD policies that put out, it'll say in accordance with, National Security Act of 1947. It'll say EO 12333 as amended, and that's the way we do things. And it's not impossible, because I've seen it a couple times where you run into an organization or an effort, and they're saying, well, we're using this as our guiding authority. And you're looking like, whoa, I mean, dude, I was in kindergarten when that memo was signed. You might want to get that updated.
So you think it's possible that there are such programs in legacy programs? And is that what they're actually called, legacy programs?
Legacy, yeah.
Okay. So is that feasible?
It is unlikely, but it is certainly well within the realm of possibility. I do not doubt that some of those legacy programs still exist. Whether it involves the UFO program remains to be seen, because we've done a lot of digging around, and if they exist, they're really dug themselves deep, which is I mean, kudos to them, but I know where to dig. I know where to put the holes in the ground to find what we want to look for. I do think that there may be some some legacy guidance out there that people may still be using to not want to have this conversation. But I think even more importantly, there may be two other issues at hand. Either the technology is so revolutionary that someone has made a decision unilaterally to not share this even with their own chain of command, which is a problem. Or the other possibility as well is that they're scared. Now they know that there's accountability, and now they know that someone's going to have to face the music and tell Congress and the American people and the chain of command that, yeah, we've been doing this whole time, and we've been doing it under your nose, and yeah, we lied to you. We didn't tell you. That's a problem because there's significant liability there. If you imagine some person, a pilot who reports an incident, and now because of it is forced to undergo psychological evaluation, is taken off of flight status, and as a result maybe is reassigned, and now loses his marriage or her marriage because of this, and furthermore now becomes homeless and loses everything for doing the right thing. It loses everything, is now living on the streets and homeless because they reported a UFO sighting at some point in the past. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but can you imagine the liability? What we would have to owe that individual to come back and say, you know what, we destroyed your life and your career, and at the end of the day, you were right. That's I mean, that's, you're talking, depending on how many people that's ever happened to, if it's happened, then that's a hell of a liability. I mean, that's one hell of a lawsuit.
Yeah. Now, yeah, at this point, I'm sure everybody's familiar that you have been working with Danny Sheehan, the Pentagon. I guess I can say the Pentagon, or the public's spokesperson has, they put out some statements, saying you didn't direct AATIP, or whatever, whatever they've been saying, which we know is not true. Do you think there's any other countermeasures that would ever be taken, other than trying to delete your emails, or at least claiming that they did?
Well, sure. I mean, obviously that the fact you're seeing it play out, the fact that they tried to come after my security clearances and make false accusations, the fact that they're trying to rewrite history after the Dana White, the Secretary of Defense's own press secretary, stated what AATIP was and what my role was in it. Now you see this amateur effort to try to change course, and then last but not least, delete my emails. That's problematic. That's frankly now on the verge of an illegal act. But I don't think I have to help them anymore paint themselves in a corner. My intent was always to offer a helping hand and help them out of this corner. And for whatever reason, every time I extend my hand, they recoil and back themselves further into the corner. It's a bit like an angry, hungry dog that has been. No matter how much you try to help it and feed it and pet it, it just wants to bite. And that is not indicative of the entire Department of Defense. I want to make this clear that the Department of Defense does an amazing job 99% of the time, and is full of absolute patriots. Some of my very best friends are still members of the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. The problem is that there are some elements, the same elements that people consider are running rogue regarding the UAP topic. There are some rogue elements in the Pentagon that have decided to make this an agenda for them. And unfortunately, they've dragged the rest of the Pentagon into their pettiness. And it's at this point, it's looking absolutely ridiculous for the Pentagon. And they don't need my help right now looking any more ridiculous. It actually makes me very sad. I wish there was a way that we could simply just have them stop digging themselves any deeper holes. They've already got a hell of a ladder that they're going to have to climb to get out of it. And ultimately, it disparages the fine men and women in uniform that work in our national security. My intent, I don't want to embarrass anybody. Look, I don't even want an apology at this point. I don't give a shit about that. What I care is about them being forthcoming and telling the truth to the American people. And again, unfortunately, there's some folks that have taken this personally. Me breaking rank with the Pentagon has infuriated them, and as a result of that, they've dragged through the mud the Pentagon with them. And I think that's a travesty. That's the last thing we need to happen right now. So
and for people listening, having Daniel Sheehan of the Disclosure Project working with you, and helping you. I think that says a lot about your character. That Danny is willing to help and help push us forward because he sees potential in this moving forward, with your help. And, he's, I think, an example of progress in this
Well, let me give you
effort.
some to show you not just progress. I mean, proven track record, right? Watergate,
Yeah.
Silkwood, Pentagon Papers, Colonel Oliver North. They all have one thing in common, and that's Daniel Sheehan, the people's advocate. People are entitled to feel and believe what they want. I'm not asking for a bunch of yes people. In fact, my success in the government has been surrounding myself with people who tell me the truth, not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. Danny's no exception. He is that 800-pound gorilla in the corner that you want. And ultimately, he and I want the same thing. We want truth and transparency, and then let the chips fall where they fall, and let the American people decide for themselves what we want to do with this. And if the answer is nothing, then fine. I'll go pack my bags and go work at Walmart. That's fine. I mean, we wouldn't have to deal with this, constant barrage of arrows. But if they want something more, then let the people make that decision. I don't think any government or, again, organization or institution has the right to dictate to their to citizens what they should think and feel about something. That's not their purview. In fact, to me, that's a very dangerous road to take. So anybody who's artificially squelching this conversation, they're making themselves an enemy of the people. And that, for me, is the biggest concern here, is that there are individuals now that are operating outside normal channels to try to disparage AATIP, try to disparage me and other people that were part of the effort. And, that's the kind of stuff that gets guys like me to do things that, they're probably politically not going to like, because there are mechanisms. Once you get into Congress, now you've got a whole lot of leverage to really get in deep into some of these things and start asking the hard questions, right? And then you can relay that information back to your constituency, because that's your job as a legislator. And so, if it turns out that they keep playing around with this, then they might have to deal with me in a different capacity, and in a capacity that has far more authorities than I have right now. And I really am trying my best to avoid that. I don't want it to come to that. But make no mistake that if elements continue on this course, I will do it, and I will do it to protect the Pentagon. Believe it or not, I'll be doing it so we can identify that cancer inside the Pentagon's chain of command, and then remove it so the Pentagon can, cure the Pentagon, so to speak, of that cancer that continues to paint a false narrative. And there's ways to do that when you are a legislator. You control the purse. You can be on committees that force this transparency, and then you have a conversation with the American people.
Yeah. I almost forgot to ask this question. In the AATIP slides, there was something that came up, cognitive human interface. What did that mean to AATIP?
Well, I think you know what that means to AATIP. That's kind of your CE5 now, isn't it?
So was something like that, I guess, observed in all the studies and the cases?
James, I'm gonna take a Heisman pass on that.
Sure.
Because again, I'll let experts speak to that.
Sure. Is there anything you can say to that at all?
Well, I'm doing your interview, aren't
I? Wonderfully said. Okay, what about
for all those people out there who say Lue doesn't give CE5 any credence? Well, you've never asked.
I was gonna say this. I mean, cognitive human interface. That's just. I mean, we could just call that CHI instead of CE5, right? What about penetration through solid surfaces? That sounds interesting.
It is interesting, isn't
it? Would that also fall under transmedium?
Yeah, absolutely. If you understand the mathematics like some of our guys do, there's some theories that potentially stipulate that mass and matter and energy is a bit relative. And again, I'll allow the physicists to expound upon that. But yeah, certainly something worth looking into.
Yeah, and then there was, I guess this just relates to the other one, is unique cognitive human interface experiences. So that's almost like ATIP saying contact experiences. Fair. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I found these slides fascinating, and I don't know why more people are not talking about them. It says DoD has been involved in similar experiences in the past. I don't know if you're familiar with anything like that. Okay, enough of that. Sorry about that.
No, I apologize. Just, you know,
really interesting slide, I'll say. Anybody that knows ATIP slide 9, read in between the lines. There's no lines there, but if you read in between them, you can probably learn a lot.
in the early days, ATIP was looking at a lot of things. I think that's fair and accurate to say.
Is there a chance, like if UAP task force is made a permanent body, is that kind of a continuation of ATIP?
Of course it is. I mean, I won't go into detail. The people that are a lot of the folks that are involved with the UAP task force were part of ATIP. I mean,
yeah,
they're buddies. I can call them on the phone if I want to.
Would you be able to get re-involved at that point, or you wouldn't want to?
It depends where I'm most effective. I've got a voice that I didn't have before when I was in the government. I have a little bit more latitude on the outside. I have less authority, but perhaps a louder voice. And so at some point it's going to depend on what is the best way for me to continue to have a productive conversation. I don't want this to be some sort of, forgive me, Jerry Springer event. I'm not trying to create drama. I just want answers provided to the people that they paid for with their tax money, their taxpayer paid efforts. I want solutions. I want the data that you paid for provided to you.
Oh man, I wanted to. And I don't know if you can comment on the spatial temporal translation. What does that mean?
Well, James, you have succeeded in making me squirm. So congratulations. I'm going to politely defer that question. Maybe at some point I'll be able to discuss that a little bit more. There's probably other people that are a little bit more qualified that can answer that question for you.
Yeah, and just a few more. I'm sorry. I know it's been brought up, MJ12. If that was such a thing, I don't understand if it's like an official body or it's like something that would be rogue.
Or both.
Or both. Interesting. And again, that there's a group that has been brought up called Zodiac.
I can't comment on that.
Okay. And what about Collins Elite?
I won't comment on, other than that there's a few individuals that certainly fall within that description that I know.
Yeah. And you were seen wearing a hat that said Phenom. Is there any significance in that?
There is an effort underway with some colleagues of mine that are involved in trying to provide solutions to this enigma. I wore that hat as a matter of solidarity. They are not. It's not involved with any type of film production or entertainment at all. It's part of a no kidding data collected driven effort to try to add some fidelity to this topic. I don't want to speak more than that, because Although I work with the individuals, I'm not an employee. I don't get paid by them. I don't want to endorse anything. But at some point in the future, my hope is that maybe that people will know what that is and see and say, oh wow, that's really interesting.
It looks like I like the logo. It looked cool. Um, so what do you think is going to advance this topic? I mean, we've come a long way. It's incredible. It's almost hard to believe. It almost feels too good to be true, and like, oh my God, I don't want this to stop, kind of thing, right? It seems like we're finally moving. But what is it going to take to push this even further?
James, you're doing it right now. This is exactly this. This is now, we're now at critical mass, and it's beginning to gain momentum on its own. I'm becoming less and less relevant, which is exactly what should be. I should not be the spokesperson for disclosure. That was never my intent. My intent was simply to run down the field a couple of yards and then pass the baton to somebody who was faster than I was. I think it's happening. I've told people from day one, it's a process, not an event. And if you don't have the patience for this, then don't even get involved, because it's going to take a while. And hopefully people are now beginning to see that. I meant what I said. I wasn't just speaking because I wanted to speak. In fact, I prefer to speak less than more. But I think you're seeing what that success looks like. You're seeing it being taken serious across all sectors of society, and not just here in the United States, but really internationally and around the world. And that's a testament in large part to you and your audience. You can be a leader on the combat field, but if you have no troops, stars on your shoulder don't mean anything. So this is only working because we have people in the trenches that are willing to take up the good fight and have this conversation around the dinner table and around the water cooler, and let the media know it's okay to report on this, and letting your elected officials know that you want them to look into this. All this is because of you and your listeners, not me. I again, back to the Swiss Army knife. Everybody has a purpose in this little capable tool. I happen to be the funny little screwdriver on the back side of the knife that nobody ever uses very often. But we all have a purpose in this effort, and we're all part of that Swiss Army knife, so to speak. And everybody, even those who are the scissors and even the toothpick that comes in it, all have a purpose in this. And what makes it so effective is that no tool in the Swiss Army knife can do what other tools in the Swiss Army knife can do. We're all very specialized, and that's what makes it so effective.
Yeah. Now, and I don't want to get too out there in the sense of like woo, but I've heard you talk about use the word quantum and stuff like that. So what role do you think the idea of non-locality and consciousness and even quantum mechanics plays in the UFO story?
Well, it's all of it, but consciousness plays a role in everything. When I want to go to the grocery store, there are processes occurring that I'm literally going to the store using consciousness. What's happening is I'm making a decision that I need to go pick up milk. And then my brain tells my body through electrical signals to move my body to an automobile. Then I make a conscious decision to put the key in, I turn it on, and then I have to, the entire time while I'm trying to coordinate driving a vehicle, know that my end destination is going to the store for getting milk. And all that is driven on human consciousness. It is consciousness because I'm making a deliberate decision to do something, then I'm executing that decision. My brain is communicating through electrical impulses a desire, and that desire is a quantum process. It is human consciousness. It's not my brain saying, hey, I want to go to the store. There's something deeper, more innate saying, hey, you need to go to the store for something. Then the brain says, okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and tell the body how to get there. So in a very real sense, everything we do is a quantum process. It's consciousness. It doesn't have to be woo. It's not woo. It's only woo when we start filling in the blanks with speculation and innuendos, and we make it woo. But the universe is woo enough, or we don't have to make it any more woo than it is. That's reality. We have the ability now to put a helmet on a fighter pilot And from 1,000 miles away, he can fly an F-16 or she can fly an F-16 using brainwaves. That is the epitome of mind over matter. That is using a technical interface, a device to interpret human brainwave activity and then creating an output, right? So whether you want to call that psychotronics or whatever you want to call that, that's a reality. We're doing it now. DARPA's working on that. Every time you see an artificial limb where somebody can control it with their brain, don't look now, but that's consciousness. You're looking at it. You're looking at the epitome of what that is. And yes, we can manipulate things in a material world with consciousness. We just use technology to do it and enhance that for us. But that's not woo. That's real. That's reality. We do it every day.
Yeah. And I've had like I said, in my experience, I've had positive contact experiences. So in some ways I look at, contact, or even if you want to extrapolate the UFO reality as an opportunity, right? For human growth and that kind of thing. So what do you think that presents to us?
Well, there's always opportunity. I mean, I've lived through wars, and even through wars, there's always opportunity. I have the opportunity, as terrible as war is, I've had the opportunity to meet some of the finest human beings I've ever had the privilege to serve with, and not just on my side of the fence too, but on the other side. I've seen the best and worst in mankind within five minutes of each other. And I always think there's opportunity, even in the least likely places. So I am optimistic. I'm also realistic. People learn that about me, but I'm not all doom and gloom. In fact, I think there's a potential here for incredible opportunities. I've said this for the record before. Imagine 1,000 years of human technological evolution occurring in one generation. And by the way, that's not woo either. We did it with the space race when we were going against toe to toe with the Soviets, who was going to put the first person on the moon. We invented 6,000 industries that wound up helping humanity. Things like CAT scans, right, and CTs, and things like the LED light bulb. These are things that have far surpassed it and exceeded their initial intended use and purpose. So I always see opportunity. Look, the fact that you and I can sit here and even have this conversation, this is an opportunity. We can hopefully at the end of this conversation bridge gaps and bring people together that otherwise wouldn't come together. So this is making a difference, a very positive difference right now. You're seeing it. So it's not wait, oh, well, maybe one day this will work out good for humanity. Yeah. It's happening now. You have an international conversation occurring right now where maybe people can put aside their differences for just a little bit and come together for the mutual good.
Yeah. And, one more thing, you brought up the idea before of humankind's. I thought this was a few years ago, and it was over some kind of video conference for an event. And I was pretty blown away by that. I thought it was a profound statement. So what do you mean when you say humankind's?
I'm probably going to let your imagination take that, because it means something different for different people. This is a tremendously complex universe we live in. And as my friend Christopher Mellon said so eloquently, the Earth has been here for 4.5 billion years. We've just been really looking for some sort of life outside of our planet for the last 100 years. Is it possible that intelligent life has found us first? And I think I've often used the analogy of standing on a sandy beach looking at the horizon. And in doing so, one wonders, what's it like over the horizon? And although as a individual, these paradigm moments don't happen all the time, as a species, they do. And we've seen it time and time again, whether it's the first time we crawled out of the cave and looked at the sun, or we invented fire for the first time and we can harness it, or we stood on a sandy beach and looked at the horizon, and someone had the courage to say, I'm going to sail over that horizon, despite everybody saying, no, you're going to fall off the earth and it's flat and there's sea monsters out there. And lo and behold, someone took a chance, and here we are. As a species, we did it. And it turns out there are sea monsters. There are things called great white sharks and blue whales and great squid of the Pacific. but they're not really monsters. They're just part of nature. They're just part of our reality, our current paradigm, and they're normal. And so perhaps this topic is yet just another horizon that we're looking at, and we're on the precipice of sailing over the horizon for the first time. I think it's in our genetics to continue to search and strive to look for answers. I don't think this topic is any different, and it may turn out that what we find over the horizon may be a reflection of us. Maybe we're not so unique after all. Maybe we're part of a much more beautiful cosmic neighborhood where life is abundant. And then we have to redefine what it means to be human, because maybe being human isn't quite so unique after all. Maybe what makes us unique is something inside, not outside. And so maybe we have to redefine what it means to be a human being. And maybe there's more, we refer to ourselves as mankind, but could quite possibly be the case that it is mankind's, that there's a whole new definition now of what we have to ascribe as being a sentient life form, an intelligent sentient life form. That may very well be the case.
Well, that's beautiful, Lou. That needs to be like a segment in a book, I swear to God.
I'm not a poet, brother.
I don't know.
I'm just some old military grunt.
Just if you had a message for the viewers or the listeners to leave them with, what would that be?
Don't stop and think for yourself. Don't let other people tell you what to think. Think for yourself. That includes me. Don't my job is to give you the tools so you know how to think, not what to think. Because if someone's telling you what to think, then they don't have your best interest at heart. Teaching someone how to think is a little bit different, but teaching somebody what to think, I have concern with that. So please think for yourself. Don't let anybody tell you what to think. And again, that includes me. You need to think. You need to think for yourself. You need to collect the facts and the data, and then process that data. And asking one's opinion is fine, but for the love of God, please don't ever give anybody the authority to make decisions on your behalf, especially decisions that involve topics like this. It's too important to just let somebody else decide that for you.
Definitely. Well, Lou, I really want to thank you for coming on. I don't think people necessarily realize, not even on purpose, just people are caught up in their own lives, and they don't realize what everything you've sacrificed and put into this. And I'm really honored to be here speaking with you, with somebody who's sacrificed so much and in a sense put the world first to do the right thing. And that kind of integrity is it's not common. So, God bless you. And, thank you so much for coming on and doing everything that you do. And you always have people that support you. And I'm not going to let people blindly smash you in public and let people get away with that, because that's just nonsense. That's not right to do.
Well, James, I appreciate that very much. But at the end of the day, people are entitled to take those swipes if that's what makes them feel better. Yes, it frustrates me. But at the end of the day, I went to war so people have the right to think I'm a bad guy, and that's okay, because ultimately that's what this is about, allowing people to formulate their own opinions. And I do appreciate you offering to defend me. But this is part of the process. We have to allow people to express themselves, and even when that expression is in contravention to what we believe and what we stand for, that I can't pick and choose and say, I'm only going to do this for people who are grateful. I'm doing this for even the people who are ungrateful, and the people who want to see me, fail on a daily basis, and that's okay. That's okay. I do it anyways because I feel it's the right thing to do. And I do, by the way, appreciate your time today. And I also want to say a special thank you to your audience. I've always told people, I don't care if you have one listener or 10 million listeners. this is a conversation that I'm happy to have, because I think it's one that involves all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we look forward to all the work you keep on doing, man. And
You
we'll
got
see you
it,
around.
James. Thank you very
Take
much.
care,
Very
brother.
thoughtful. Appreciate it.